Hey, it's Anthony Meisner. I wanted to bring you our Boulder County market update. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to get into everything that's going on for the month of January and just really what we're looking at here with this transition as things change in the market. So wanted to give you the highlights, right? So let's start with just where we are as far as this transition in our inventory situation and what to expect. There's some really good news here that I wanted to point out. You can see that blue line is our under contract line, right? So a lot of what we're looking for and what we're experiencing is the last kind of quarter or so, we've been down 35% in our under contract numbers, which then results in that dip in sales. Well, the nicest thing about this is January came off to a really good pace. Keep in mind, last year during January, we only saw about 3% interest rates. We had booming buyer demand. So we're only down about 21% off of that. In my mind, that is a huge step up from where we were in the November, December timeframe, which we were down 35%. So that's a great sign. The only issue is this is going to create even more of an inventory shortage right now. Now, you're going to see a lot of stuff come to market, but we don't see the bulk of our inventory come to market till that March or April timeframe. So let's take a little bit of a look at that for you. You can see it here. So right here, you can really tell towards the end of the year, things always dip off. This is a pretty normal seasonal change where we're going to have rising inventory February through probably about October, November, right? I mean, well, maybe not November, middle of the year, right? So expect this year, especially with the higher interest rates we're experiencing, we're going to have a really good spring market, right? That's a good sign, but you're going to be chasing inventory up. So if you're a seller, you really want to be moving that inventory earlier in the year, if at all possible. It's really going to help. Now, if you're a buyer, there's a couple of things to really pay attention to. If you get in early, right now, it could be a really good time to beat some of that other buyer traffic. As interest rates reduce, there's going to be more buyer demand out there. So you're going to see more people competing in the marketplace. So if you get in early, you're going to have that. But interest rates are probably going to lower, which means that you're going to have more buying power later in the year, but you're going to have a lot more competition. So it's going to be a double-edged sword this year for buyers. But as a seller, sooner is better, right? If you can list in February or March, I would really highly suggest doing that. And that's just going to create some more inventory coming on the market through the year. So if you can beat that to market, that's really helpful. The big difference here, so I talk about this all the time, is the submarkets are not all created equal, right? If you're looking at the city of Boulder is way more resilient when it comes to stuff like this. You can see the city of Boulder right now. It looks like it's down about 12% listings month over month, but from this time last year, it only has 90% more inventory, right? Now, 90% sounds like a lot, but we were at like a week and a half of inventory. Now we're at like a month of inventory. So that being said, the total supply line hasn't risen that much. We're at 160 units. Go out to other markets. Look at Longmont. Longmont has 203 total units on the market. That's a 400% rise, right? But that's because the price points are lower, and people at lower price points are really opt to be a little bit more payment sensitive, right? So if we're at 6% today or 6.5% today, and we were at 3% this time last year, you eliminated a ton of buyers from that market, and that's creating that inventory high. The one market that's interesting to look at would be Erie, because Erie's had a height in inventory, 270% it looks like. But the big difference is they've actually had more sales in Erie, because I think a lot of people from, that would normally shop in a Louisville, a Lafayette, or a Boulder, or even a Superior are going out there to get a little bit more bang for their buck. That being said, Erie has been remarkably well over the last couple of months. All right, so let's take a look at this month's supply of inventory right now. We're at 1.4 months of inventory. I think the biggest takeaway from this, it's up a lot, but it's up from 0.4 to 1.4. This is still an incredible seller's market, right? We haven't seen seller's markets like this outside of the last couple of years in a long time. If you look back to 2019, we were at 4 months of inventory. 2020, we started the year with 2.5 months of inventory. This is a seller's market. If you want to take advantage of a seller's market, get out there and sell a house. The only problem is we're going to have a reduction in total number of sales. We're going to have a reduction in buyers. So even though it's a seller's market, don't expect those crazy bidding wars like we saw last spring. Expect it to be a lot more modest and reasonable. Think more like 2018, 2019, or even if you remember real estate markets back into that 2012 to 2014 range, those are also really good indicators of what we should experience. If you look at the days in MLS, this gives you a good idea for the pace of the market right now. If you're working with your buyers or sellers, that pace of the market is so important, right? We have 52 days in the MLS right now. That means active to under contract in 52 days. Expect that January is the highest. It's almost the highest every single year. Sometimes it's December. We're going to be chasing this down all the way through May. So you're going to see the market speed up. Are you going to see it speed up like last year? Absolutely not. We're not going to see like 10 days in May. We're going to see this speed up to maybe somewhere like 2020, where we saw a plateau around that 20 to 30 day range or even less. But we're going to be in that point where this is finally a little bit more reasonable, right? It's a little bit more rational. We don't have people doing all kinds of crazy things that are outlandish, like bidding wars of a couple $100,000 over asking, right? You might see one here and there in really unique markets, but you're not going to see that take place across the whole market because there's just not as many buyers out there. So the good news is for your buyers is they have some time to shop, right? The real question is, just like any market, those cream puff listings, those really amazing listings, those are still going to sell really quickly. So as a listing agent, it's your job to really do your job for your sellers to help them understand why we need to stage, why we need to prep things correctly, why we need to still button up our property, because those properties always sell the fastest, as you guys know. Now, moving into this spring market, it's definitely good to help your buyers understand that there's going to be more competition every single month. So it's good to start shopping early, even if interest rates are a little bit higher. Use some of those tools your lenders can help you with, like the 2-1 buy down products, to help weather that interest rate until interest rates drop, because we know they're going to drop eventually. Just we're not quite sure how long it's going to take for that to happen, right? We get good employment news and things bump up another 0.5 percentage point like we saw last time. So the good news is, we're here at a point where we at least understand we're going to be in a rising inventory market. We understand we're getting back to some new norms. Those pre-COVID normals, we're going to start feeling like the market is pre-COVID again. This is a good sign for the year. This is one that I really like you guys to use because it's by price point. So if you're working with clients in a certain price range, this is the best way for them to understand. Most people aren't like, I'm only going to live in Lafayette, right? They're like, I can afford $3,000 a month. I'm going to go shop for $3,000 a month. What does that get me, right? So that can help you land in these different price categories. We have all this for detached or attached as well, but the market's all pretty much clipping along at the same pace right now. There's a few major takeaways, though, by price point. The luxury part of the market is still doing pretty well. It really started to slow down the last couple of months, in that like $1.5 to $3 million range, somewhere in there. But over 3 million, that market is just booming, right? And a lot of it, I don't think we're catching in this data because we see a lot of stuff that's coming off market that never even hit the MLS, right? So I'm starting to see some of that as well, where that ultra luxury range, we don't quite capture it. I've been putting together a luxury presentation. So reach out to me if you need more information on the high-end luxury market. I have a City of Boulder presentation that breaks it down over the last decade. Some really cool stuff, but I won't get into that today. The best way to use this, use it by price range, use it with those people, help them understand that, at your price range, let's call it that $600,000 to $800,000, we're down by 40% in total sales, but our inventory is up, 100 and what is that? 127%, right? Which is one of the lower amounts. So we got a lot more inventory, but when we look at a lot more inventory, we're talking about 41 units on the market, right? So there's still not a lot to look at. We're still in a little bit of an inventory shortage, but at least you're not as competitive as you were before. Talking 16 total sales in that price range in the month of January. That was the slowest of the year, right? It's going to pick up. So we'll have those conversations. Then you get over here to month supply of inventory and days on market. And this is the best one to have these conversations with, because that 5 to 599, if you're working with that buyer, they only have 0.8 months of inventory on the market. This is a dramatic inventory shortage, right? So if you're selling a house in that price range, you can sell it, you can get it on the market, but if you do it right, you could get bidding wars, you could get top dollar for it, because that's a price range with no inventory, right? And there's still a lot of people shopping there. Are they going to be 100,000 over asking? No, we got to really reel in those seller expectations. And honestly, it might take a little bit longer to go under contract, but you can probably get it under contract for a really good amount. I mean, look at this. You got 45 to 60 days kind of on average across most of the price bands for average days on market. That should start to reduce, and it should start to be more consistent. Expect that those luxury price points are going to start to tick up a little bit. They're going to take a little bit longer. We're starting to see some real inventory there. You can see it 3+ million. We're at 7 months inventory, it's finally a buyer's market at 3+ million, which hasn't happened in a long time. Usually that fluctuates 12 to 18 months in this county. So that's really important to see that. If you look at the $2.5 to $3 million, we have 3 months of inventory. It's getting closer to that balanced inventory market, which is good. So we're starting to see, some opportunity there in the luxury market as well. All right, let's talk a little bit about total sold analysis. So this is our total sales for the market. I think the biggest thing to be mindful of is how much the last couple of years have been an anomaly, and how getting into this new 2023 market and just what to expect. So like I said, we're down 20% in total under contracts for the month of January. That's a good sign, because you can see here the total number of year-to-date change in our sales numbers were 35%. December really came to a little bit of a screeching halt. So that January number is a really good sign that we're going to see an increase in sales a little bit more than expected, right? That's a really good sign. It's going to be quite a bit less than it would be in 2022 for the first few months of the year. And then hopefully we're going to see some robust sales numbers in the fall. I've actually got another slide that might be a little bit easier to show you this. But let's talk about average sales price first before we skip over it. We were chasing sales prices down the last 7-8 months. January showed some really significant changes. So we saw an uptick. We're going to see that going into this year, right? We're starting to see some of that seasonality, but January was a really good sign. Higher average sales price, better than expected under contract numbers. And this slide really goes to show you that even though things might have slipped over the last 8 months or so, we had so much appreciation at the beginning of the year. You still made a lot of money if you bought real estate in the last 2 years, right? It's not a big deal. And this year's going to recover really well, you can tell. So it's really important to be able to have that conversation, articulate this. I love that trailing 12-month number at the bottom. So if you're talking to people about what was the real appreciation in the city of Boulder, right? You can see down there 13.6% over the last 12 months is how much more expensive that market got. That's amazing, right? We're talking about price reductions in the last quarter in the city, or in Colorado, or like nationally, they're expecting prices to either stay steady or maybe even slightly go down. This is a resilient market. So this slide is really good to be able to help have that conversation over time. All right, so this is the one I was talking about, where we can really start to have that conversation about what is the sold market going to look like. We're going to be short the first, let's just call it all the way through probably June for our total sales numbers. But then we had such high interest rates and such uncertainty in the market towards the end of the year last year that I would expect, July to maybe be similar to last year. And then those last 3 months where we were down so much in October, November, December, expect us to really either match or beat those numbers going in this year. Because if we get like a 5.5% to 5% rate by the fourth quarter, we could have booming sales numbers. We could see this more like a plateau to the end of the year rather than this hills and valleys like we've been experiencing over the last 12 months. So this is a good sign. You can always shoot a video on this. I like this slide to help articulate it, maybe give it a month or two to talk about, what to expect in the market. It also gives you all the information at the bottom of the slides to tell you a little bit about what's kind of happening there with, your city data. All right, so this is the last one I have to talk to you about. This is our percentage sold price to list price. We'll talk about detached specifically because it's just easier to break them apart. But honestly, they're basically really similar right now. You can see right here, we're at 97.1%. This is one of the better times. I've been telling you, this is a good time to get a deal, right? So we're finally getting out of that time where it was a good deal, and we're getting back to maybe a time where you're expecting that to accelerate and get, more and more buyers acting in the market. So February through May, you see that big peak, right? Look at 2022, where you're like how much that market blew up in the spring. We're not going to see that. We're going to see more of a pretty level playing field. You can see 2020, where we never really got too much over 100%. In a normalized market, we would see January increase all the way through May, peak at, around 100%, and then taper off towards the end of the year into the fall. Like I said, though, if we have interest rates drop pretty significantly, you could see a plateau in the fall. Maybe we peak out around, 98, 99% in the fall, and it stays there, right? There could be a lot of buyer demand. We know there's a lot of pent-up demand in the marketplace because you had so many people shopping at the beginning of the year, and it just kind of got cut off. So as people start to see that affordability changes again, you're going to really start to see them re-enter the marketplace. We just don't know at what pace that's going to take place. This is the attached market. Use this with all your attached folks, but you can really see the difference between the last couple of years. The attached market wasn't nearly as extreme with its bidding wars because people tend to go to attached when they have less of a monthly payment or they can't put as much down, and a lot of people are being forced into that market. But because of that, you have 98.5% listed sale price. It's actually a lot more competitive in the attached market in Boulder County than it is in the detached market. So good opportunity if you can jump in and capitalize on that. Well, if you have any questions, I'm Anthony Meisner with Land Title, and I hope to catch you on the next video. I always have all the local data, so feel free to reach out to me if you need any help with your listings. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Have a good one. Bye.